Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here right now. And I am absolutely thrilled to introduce to you our next keynote speaker, the founder of Blimpie, Tony Conza. He is near and dear to me, a former client of mine back when I was in my 20s. And I'm so honored, we should all be very honored to have him here to share his incredible 59-year journey of growing his sandwich empire. You're in for a huge treat. Get ready to listen. Tony's going to be discussing how Blimpie's innovative approach helped originate so many strategies that we see in modern food and beverage industry today. He's really catapulted Blimpie in his time to a peak of 2,000 locations across North America.
Blast, 6 feet of choice meats, real dairy cheese, freshly baked bread, enough to satisfy up to 40 people, or just one. Blimpie, it's a beautiful thing.
Have a Blimpie blast. Invite a Blimpie party sub to your next party. We promise we'll be good.
At age 24, Tony Conza and Peter DiCarlo quit their jobs and risked everything to open a sandwich stand they call Blimpie Base, named after the shape of the sandwiches they sell.
Tony Conza of Blimpie is essentially like the Wolf of Eat Street.
Hi, I'm Tony Conza, founder of Blimpie. I'm just a simple sandwich man. Started making them over 35 years ago. Fresh baked bread, oven roasted turkey, and aged Swiss. I think a sandwich like that sells itself, but our ad agency tells me that repetition of the name Blimpie will help customers remember us.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. You know, about a week ago, I was walking through Greenwich Village in Manhattan and found myself in this antique store. And I spotted this lantern. I thought it was pretty cool. So I bought the lantern, brought it home, put it on my desk, and all of a sudden this image appeared. And he said, "I'm a genie, and I'm prepared to grant you any wish you desire." Whoa, well, first thing I thought about was the 30 years I spent on the board of the Boys and Girls Clubs of America and how I always liked helping kids. So I said, "I'll tell you what you could do for me, Genie. You can stop all the violence in America." "Where is this violence?" the Genie wanted to know. Well, I reached into my drawer, pulled out a map of the United States, spread it across the table. I said, "Look, Genie, the violence is here in New York. It's in Philadelphia, Atlanta, down here in Miami." I moved my hand to the other side of the map. I said, "It's in Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, down here in Houston and Dallas, up here in Chicago and Detroit. In fact, Genie, anywhere on this map where you see a city, there's violence." "Whoa," the Genie said, "that looks like a pretty big problem. I'm not sure I could handle that. Isn't there maybe something else I could do for you?" No, I took the map, folded it up, put it back in my drawer. I said, "I'll tell you what, Genie, next week I'm going to Philadelphia. I'm going to be speaking to this franchise group. Can you just make sure that everything I have to say is totally interesting and totally compelling?" Genie thought about it. He thought about it, and finally he said, "Can I see that map again?" So yes, I am Mr. Blimpie, for those of you who can remember the 2,200 store chain that I founded, sold about 20 years ago to a company that's been slowly destroying it, and to the History Channel, which is apparently kind of misportraying it. But I call my business experience a 38-year overnight success. And it began in Jersey City, New Jersey in Oh, a Jersey City person. In 1964, when a couple of high school friends and I, we met at a party and we started talking about going into business. And the conversation turned to a sandwich that we had heard about from the Jersey Shore. We used to go for weekends, summer vacations. So we got up the next day, took a drive down the shore, tasted the sandwich, loved how there was a salad on the sandwich, which was something that was not being done in Jersey City, Hoboken, New York. So we thought, people up north would love this sandwich. Well, on the drive back home, we decided, let's open a sandwich place. Now, we had a little problem. Nobody had any money. But we managed to convince a friend of ours to loan us a few $1,000s. And with that, we took a location in Hoboken, fixed up the store ourselves, bought some used equipment, and started selling sandwiches. And from the moment we opened the doors, people lined up. They loved the sandwich, right? So this went on for a few months, and then we thought, there were 3 of us. We should each operate a store, right? So we said, let's open 2 more stores. Well, we still had the same problem. We didn't have any money, right? But this time we had something else. We had cash flow. So instead of paying the meat guy, we paid the builder. Instead of paying the bread man, we bought equipment. And somehow we got 2 more locations open. And again, when we opened the doors, people were lining up. They loved the sandwich. And then something else started happening. People started coming to us and saying, oh, this looks like a great idea, great concept. How can we get one of these? Well, there were no franchise laws at the time. So we quickly put together a franchise package and started selling franchises. But through all this, what seemed like huge success, our financial problems kept getting worse, right? You see, we were paying attention to what we call in the restaurant business the front of the house, which is how good your product is, how good your service is, how you're promoting. What we were ignoring was the back of the house, what things cost. So yes, we were selling a lot of sandwiches, but we weren't making any money. And because we had borrowed so much money, well, it was kind of, was ready to hit the fan. And then one day, we're sitting in our newly occupied and fashionably decorated franchise sales office, when busting through the front door comes this huge, burly man dressed in farmer overalls, flannel shirt, dirty boots. And as we sat there kind of petrified, he walks up to the table and he slams his fist down and he goes, "My name is Irving Watson, and you owe me $10,000. As I looked at the man's boots, I could tell by the turkey dung that was staining my newly installed chocolate brown shag carpeting that this was our turkey supplier. And the other day I was in Panera and I bought a sandwich. I think it was like $12.50, right? Now, when you're selling sandwiches for $12.50, $10,000 doesn't sound like that much money. But when you're selling sandwiches for 50 cents, it's a lot of money, So, that day we managed to calm down Mr. Watson, but it was a wake-up call that we had better get our financial house in order, otherwise we weren't going to be around too much longer. So shortly thereafter, one of the partners dropped out of the company. The other guy and I stayed together for a number of years, and then we split. My company went on to do a small public offering. We sold our stock at $1.25 a share. And by the late 1980s, we had 200 locations. But things weren't going right. Our expansion had kind of screeched to a halt. The company had reported a loss in earnings for the prior year. And our stock was selling at 15 cents a share. And personally, I was feeling like a failure. And I started thinking, like, how could you have built a chain to 200 stores, and now you're feeling like a failure? What happened? What changed? What went wrong? And I kept thinking about it, and I couldn't figure it out. And then one day, it hit me. I realized I had lost something. I lost the passion. I lost the passion for Blimpie. I lost the passion for success. And my first reaction to that was, gee, you better just get out of this business if you don't have a passion for it. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, let's see, you're too young to retire. You don't have the money to retire. That means you're going to have to either start another business or go work for somebody, and you have to get the passion for that. Otherwise, that's not going to work either. Wasn't Blimpie just a good business? Wouldn't it just make a lot more sense to get the passion back for Blimpie? And once I made the decision to regain the passion for Blimpie and regain the passion for success, everything changed, right? First thing I did was I gathered the top people in the company into a room, and I said, we're going to sit here. I don't care how long it takes. We're going to make a list of everything that we need to change, to upgrade, to eliminate, to add. And we sat there all day and all night, and we made this gigantic list, and we called it 101 small improvements. And we formed a Franchisee Advisory Council. We thought, it's probably a good idea to get the franchisees involved in the operations of the company and the growth of the company. And we hired some good people. Now, we couldn't hire the most expensive people because we couldn't afford the most expensive people. But what we could afford was the most passionate people. And that's what I looked for, because I knew my passion would not be enough. I would have to be able to capture the passion of the people around me in order to make this a success. And then we did a couple of other things. We hired a public relations agency so we could raise the profile of the brand, and that's how Sherry and I met. We've known each other for a very long time. Just a little sidebar. We were talking about this earlier. S&S Public Relations was Subway's public relations agency for many years, and I always thought that they did a great job for Subway. And then one day, my receptionist comes in and says to me, there's Steve Simon on the phone from S&S Public Relations. I said, all right, I'll take the call. I get on the phone. He says, Tony, this is Steve. Subway just fired me. You should hire me. And I said, okay. And I said, let's do it. So we did. We hired S&S. Then we also decided that we needed an advertising agency. Now, I had my eye on an agency called Kirschenbaum and Bond because they were the agency that basically built the Snapple brand. I don't know if you remember the Snapple lady, but the commercials were kind of funny and kind of cute, but they were also very effective, and they really built that brand. So I brought Kirschenbaum Bond on. And the first thing they did was a bunch of research. They visited stores, they talked to customers, they talked to franchisees, they interviewed staff, they interviewed me. And then they called a meeting to present their findings and their recommendations. And Richard Kirschenbaum started off the meeting by talking about brands and how important it was to build your brand and how important it was to understand what your brand stands for. And then he said, I'll tell you what I think your brand stands for. He said, I think your brand stands for serious about sandwiches, whimsical about life. And what he meant by that was, yeah, we had to serve great sandwiches, we had to keep our stores clean, we had to do all those kinds of things. But on the other hand, Blimpie's kind of a silly word. We shouldn't take ourselves too seriously. We should have fun with what we do. And then Richard walked up to me, looked me in the eye, pointed at me, and he said, and you're going to be in the commercials. was like, what? I said, Richard, I've never acted a day in my life. He said, doesn't matter. You have the passion. You can do this. And my thoughts immediately went back to my roots in Jersey City, and I thought, I got to do what I got to do. What am I going to do, you know? So we started making commercials, and the first commercial we made was me singing to the sandwich, a cappella. Yeah, I actually did that. And, you know, if a CEO is singing to the sandwich, it must mean that he loves the sandwich, right? And if the CEO loves it, it's probably a pretty good sandwich. On the other hand, you know, a CEO is singing to a sandwich, got to at least bring a smile to your face, right? So, serious about sandwiches, whimsical about life. And we went on to do a bunch of other TV, radio, print ads, all with that same theme in mind, serious about sandwiches, whimsical about life. And, well, the result of all this, since I regained the passion, was a rocket ship, right? We went from 200 stores to 2,000 stores. We had 8 successive years of record sales and earnings. And our stock, well, had you taken that $10,000 that we owed to Mr. Watson back there and invested it, you would have become a millionaire. The other thing the agency did in making the commercials was they portrayed me as a simple sandwich man, right? Which, to me, in many ways, was kind of true, because I like to think in simple terms. I like to speak in simple terms. I like to uncomplicate the complicated. So today, the simple sandwich man is going to offer you 3 simple things to do in order to achieve success. And the first is decide where you want to go. Think about this for a second. You pick up your cell phone, you go into your Uber app or your Lyft app, and the first thing it asks you is, where are you going? You know, you put in an address or a place, and before you know it, a car picks you up and takes you to your destination, right? Now try this. When it asks you, where are you going, put in, well, I'm not sure. See what happens. Right, nothing, right? But if you think about it, it's pretty much what you're doing if you don't have goals. Like, let's say you decide you want to open a business. First thing you should do is put down into words exactly what you want to do and where you want to be in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. Be specific. You know, I want to make a lot of money is not too specific. I want to have 5 stores in the Philadelphia area. That's pretty specific. Be realistic. Do you have the knowledge for what you want to do? Do you have the money to do what you want to do? How do you feel about the commitment that you might have to make, the hours you might have to put in? Are you really challenged by your goal, or are you just looking for something to do? And just one more thing I would add to that. When I was growing up, my mother always said to me, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So be willing to take a risk. I don't mean a gamble, but I mean a sensible risk, right? Okay, so you decided where you want to go. The next thing you need to do, says the simple sandwich man, is figure out how you're going to get there, right? At the time we had 200 stores, we set a goal of having 1,000 in 5 years. And I knew that as soon as we set that goal, having 1,000 stores, I said, you know what, we got to become a national chain. And I remembered what Dave Thomas, who's the founder of Wendy's, had said. And Thomas is another one of these guys that likes to think and speak in simple terms. He said, once you decide to become a national chain, you got to hurry up. And hurrying up led us to the concept of area franchising. So whenever we would find an area developer, we'd sell them a specific territory, and then they had the right and the obligation to develop a certain number of stores in that territory within a specified period of time. So the more areas we could sell, the more stores we would have opening simultaneously, and that would get us to our goal. So, okay, so you decided where you want to go. You figured out how you're going to get there. The next thing you need to do is get there, right? Napoleon said, if you set out to take Vienna, take Vienna. You can have the best idea in the world. You can set your goals. You could have great strategic plans. You can invest in the best technology. But at some point, you got to do it. You got to put the flight plan down and get the plane into the air. Yogi Berra, the great catcher and manager of the New York Yankees, said, you can't think and hit at the same time. So those are my 3 simple steps in order to achieve success. I also want to mention there's a couple of words that I want you to, one word I want you to eliminate from your vocabulary, and the other word I want you to put front and center. The word to eliminate is the word try. Suppose you were on a United Airlines flight on the runway, and the captain comes on to the speaker and says, buckle your seatbelts because I'm going to try to take off right now. You'd be running for the exits, right? I think you want to be on a plane where the captain knows he's going to get that sucker off the ground. If you've ever tried to stop drinking or tried to lose weight or tried to eat better or whatever, you know that half-hearted commitments don't work, right? Okay, so the word I want you to keep front and center is the word opportunity. As a kid who comes from a very modest background, I was very shy, had no money, no mentors, no connections. I dropped out of college after 1 year. Yet I learned about opportunity. And I learned that opportunity does not come without obligations. And the first obligation of opportunity is you got to seize it. There was I'm going to tell you a little story. There was a rabbi who had a synagogue on the river. And one day it started raining a lot, right? And the river started rising. So the rabbi came out, and the water was up to his ankles. And a boat came by. And they said, Rabbi, come on, get in the boat. We'll save you. And the rabbi said, that's okay. God will save me. Well, it kept raining and raining. Now the water was up to the rabbi's waist. Comes out again. The boat comes by, and they said, Rabbi, get in the boat. We'll save you. That's okay. God will save me. Well, you've never seen rain like this in your life, right? So the rain is now up to the rabbi's neck. Another boat comes by. They said, Rabbi, come on, get in the boat. We'll save you. The rabbi says, it's okay. God will save me. Well, you guessed it. The water got so high, the rabbi drowned. He goes to heaven. He sees God. He said, God, what happened? I thought you were going to save me. God said, Schmuck, I sent 3 boats for you. So opportunity, right? So when you spot opportunity, reach out for it, commit to it, hold it in your hands and build your future from it, and pursue it with a passion. If I were to leave you with one message today, it would be this: get the passion. The difference between outstanding operators and mediocre ones, or even good ones, is passion. The prestigious Endicott report says one of the 3 most important factors necessary to achieve success is passion. John Madden, who was one of the great NFL coaches and TV sportcasters, said the difference between the guys that go to the Pro Bowl and the guys that don't is passion. Every year at our Blimpie annual convention, we gave out an award for Franchisee of the Year, for outstanding performance on behalf of a franchisee. And this one year, I was up at the podium like this, and I announced the winner, and her name was Vicki Sheldon. And Vicki operated a fantastic store. She had one of the highest volume stores in the chain. And she approached me, came up to the platform, and while everybody was cheering and making noise, she leaned over to me and she said, "Tony, I love Blimpie." Imagine that. I love Blimpie. That's passion. It's no wonder she was so successful. It's no wonder she was the Franchisee of the Year. The desire for success will not get you the passion. But get the passion. The best technology in the world will not get you. The best idea in the world will not get you the passion. But get the passion, and you'll be successful. And what we used to say at Blimpie, success, it's a beautiful thing. Thank you. Okay. Even though that's me?
Oh, no. That's what they told me to. Okay, we'll get this right, guys. All right. So thank you so much. It has been just a thrill for me to sit here and for everyone to hear your story, one that I know very well, I might add. I have to say that at that bewitching hour when my former boss said, Subway quit, we have Blimpie starting this afternoon. I'm like, okay, no problem. And so kind of fast forward to now is, going back, that was in 1987. Yes, I know, 1987, right, when that happened. So I wanted to kind of, first of all, right now we're open for questions, but I have a couple of questions, but you guys can have the pleasure to ask Tony questions yourself. But I have a couple of questions for you. And one that is real relevant right now, because it has to do with that sub-war fare that we always talked about and pitched during those times. But it has to do with just the recent acquisition. So it's kind of a what-if question for you, Tony, which is the recent acquisition of Subway, that Roark Capital purchased, acquired Subway for close to $9 billion. So it's, when you think back, what if you didn't sell? What do you think about that? Like, do you ever think about what if?
Waited another 20 years. I mean, at the time, I really wasn't thinking about selling the company, and but I was approached by a Wall Street firm, and the more I thought about it, it was like, you're not getting any younger, it wouldn't be bad. I could retire, get a nice condo in Florida, and relax.
And you did.
And I did. I
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
That's great.
I actually did that before I sold the company, though.
So he was prepared. That was good. That was good. So, and one thing too that is important, and thank you for that. And I have to say that everyone here, really appreciates that you talked about not only the good stuff, but the hard stuff, the mistakes that were made, the loss of the vision, and the loss of focus on, really loving what you do and the passion that you ensue within your brand. But it's important to kind of, for us to hear, because I told you that our audience is a whole, there's about 60%, I believe, that are emerging brands here. So sage advice that you could provide to them to help the brands that are struggling preserve that passion, that's so important for them. What can they do to do that?
I mean, it's not an easy thing, and when times go bad, I mean, for me, it took me a long time to realize that that was the problem. And if you have a good business, you know, if you know you have a good business, stick to it. Just, you know, give it everything you got. And get that passion, because that's the only thing that's going to do it, you know.
I find that for me, you know, passion, yes, passion starts with the leaders, but it's also, as you said, hiring the right people that can play it forward, continue spreading that passion, and that it's in everything that you do, that you love what you do and why you do it, right?
And have a good time. You know, I always had a good time with our company, with the staff. You know, I was never one of those stiff kind of guys, you know, stiff kind of bosses.
I don't think so, with all the jokes that you told. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, that's great. So, anybody in the audience have questions?
Over here.
If you don't mind, I was wondering if you had to start your business today, in today's market context, today's culture, how would that look different in comparison to what you did many years ago, many decades ago?
Wow. I mean, like I said, you know, earlier, there were no franchise laws at that time. So, you know, you could pretty much do whatever you wanted. And then it got, you know, really strict with every state having a different law. And, you know, I mean, we had, you know, full-time lawyers just doing that stuff. You know, I would also be very concerned, you know, with all the woke stuff. You got to be careful what you say, and whatever the, you know, the CEO says, what the staff says, what they say in the stores. I think it's probably, you know, pretty difficult environment today for all that kind of stuff.
He's empathetic, guys, that's for sure. Yeah, it's a harder play.
Hi, Tony. Other than Blimpie's, what's your favorite sandwich shop today? Where do you like to grab a sandwich?
Well, I live in Miami half the year and New York City half the year, so in New York, you know, there are a million choices. I used to have a home upstate New York, and we used to drive up the New York Thruway, and I always liked Panera. So, and now there's one near me in Manhattan, so I go there once in a while. But there's a lot of independent sandwich places in Manhattan. You know, it's so easy to get a good sandwich. But I like Panera, even though they're $12.50 a sandwich.
How did you reset your passion? Was there one way in which, like, catapulted that?
I think it was, I just, you know, started using logic about it. You know, I knew that I couldn't retire, right? So I had to do something, and if I wasn't going to continue with Blimpie, I'd have to do something else. And like, I mean, if that was my problem, if passion was my problem, it would be a problem no matter what I did, right? So that's what made me think that, you know, Blimpie's a great concept. Why don't I just focus and make sure I get the passion back for Blimpie? And it's just something that you have to make happen inside yourself. You know, it's a tough thing to, you know, there's no set rules as to how to make it happen. You just got to make it happen inside yourself.
I do have a question to kind of throw in there too. You started this business much like many others in this room with friends, like high school friends. So if you have any advice on that, because I know that it did eventually, you did part ways, but there are many instances where you're in business with friends and you stay too long. So when did you know the time was right for you guys to break apart?
Well, there were three of us originally, and one of the guys he was more of an operator type of guy, so he wanted to really operate a store. So we had opened, I didn't mention it today, but we opened a fourth store in Manhattan. And so he thought he'd rather just operate that store, right? So he said, why don't you give me the Manhattan store and I'll give you back my share of the parent company. And my partner and I said, okay, all right. So that was him. And then the other guy and I, we had been good friends through high school and everything, but he was a spender, let's put it that way. He was a spender and I was a conservative one. So that eventually takes its toll.
Right.
So it was a mutual thing, though, the way we split up. And
So you believe it wasn't too long? You ended before it was too late?
yes, exactly.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And we had to continue to work together because he still stayed involved in the business in a bunch of the territories. So
But you made it work.
we made it work.
Is there any other questions?
Can you talk about how you got your passion back, you got the team around you, but for it to really move forward, you got to have the passion and the culture down to the store level. Can you talk about some of the things that you did to really help scale that culture of the brand down to the store level?
So what he asked was, how did you bring that passion back into the store level? Like, how did you share that passion and for it to be?
Well, I always thought that communication was extremely important. So we had a company newsletter that came out every month. And in there I would, write a column, write my opinions and so forth. But I thought that wasn't enough. So I started doing a weekly letter called Tony's Take. And I would just write, whatever I was thinking about, whatever I thought franchisees might be interested in. Sometimes it wasn't even related to the business. Sometimes it was just something funny or something. And
You were blogging before blogging was, right.
But, I just thought that it's really important to communicate, to let the franchisees know that you care about them, which is really what it's about, And I also spent a lot of time visiting stores. I mean, I remember one year I took 100 flights in a year. That was visiting a lot of stores. And, me visiting a store, I mean, I can't really help a franchisee, but what I can do is make them understand that the company cares about them. And that was really important.
Simple but really important, guys. Well, thank you.
Hi, Tony. Thank you for joining us. When you said that the new business that took over did not follow your vision, what were a few things that they did that took the business in a different direction than you built?
It's not what they did, it's what they didn't do. I mean, they basically stopped doing everything. They stopped servicing the stores. I don't know what was in their plan, but it seemed like, and I don't think they did this just with our company. I think that it must have been a conscious plan of theirs to just, let's not spend a lot of money on servicing and development. Let's just collect whatever we can, and if a store doesn't make it, it doesn't make it. I mean, that's pretty much what's happened with it,
Thank you. Thank you so much. A round of applause for Tony Conza.
Thank you.
We have a gift for you. I'm going to get off the stage.
You can stay up here, Sherry.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Person like Tony who's willing to come share his story. And I actually had to twist his arm behind his back. I mean, why would anybody want to hear? Remember we went through the thing, and I'm like, you invented salad on a sandwich. It's on the History Channel. It's fact. But he gratefully agreed to do it.